watching the It's Her Time podcast with Cody and Jess.
Welcome back to the It's Her Time podcast. Today's episode is going to be amazing because I have a really amazing guest that's joining us, Dr. Valerie Cacho. Dr. Valerie is triple board certified in internal, sleep, and integrative medicine. She is a wealth of knowledge. She's a sleep expert, and she especially loves helping us women understand how to optimize our sleep no matter what phase of life we're in. Today, we're going to be talking all about how to optimize our sleep during menopause, but not just menopause. Like I said, all different phases. She has such incredible information to share with us. And it's so important. I know I talk a lot about sleep on this podcast, but there's a reason for that. Sleep is essential for us to be able to feel our best and to optimize our hormonal health. So I can't wait for you girls to join us in this conversation. But before we do, let's join Jess for a Mixers Girls Say.
We're going to continue on this Mixers Girls Say with worst date stories. First dates, all over the place dates. These are just
Terrible
date stories. And we're laughing way too hard to not keep sharing these. I just keep putting myself in these situations and I'm like, I'm so sorry you experienced these. Hopefully you laugh about them now.
Yeah.
So
they make good stories. And thanks for sharing them with us.
Yeah. All through dinner, he told me that he was a top-level Latin ballroom dancer in college. Later, he took me Latin dancing after. Turns out he didn't even know how to dance, but continued to tell me he had taken nationals.
Why?
What?
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to understand why he thought that was going to be. I mean, nothing against ballroom dancers.
Well, and then
my daughter ballroom danced forever.
But why did you take her dancing?
But
like, if you don't know how to dance, he could say he knew how to dance.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talk about it all dinner.
I've learned a few steps.
Yeah.
I'm a national champion. He probably was in junior high in his school, and competed at some national something.
Oh man.
That is too funny. Don't lie. Don't exaggerate. You always get caught, It's like, there we go. It's just too funny. That was hilarious.
Guy looked disappointed when he first picked me up and saw me in person. We got in the car and the first thing he said was, "So do you know how to lose weight?"
Oh, boom.
You send me his name. You send me his ad. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, but
kind of not kidding. Terrible. I know all of you right now are just with us because that is, I can't even. I'm sorry. That's terrible. No.
Big no. Okay, next. Blind date. Okay. The power went out all over town right when I was doing my hair. I ended up looking like a total frizzball.
Or like having half done would be funny.
It's the first day. She's like,
hello.
Oh, okay. Last one. He got mad. Hold on, I'm making sure this is. Oh, okay. My best friend had a guy that kept wanting to take her out on a very first date. She kept saying no. She finally decided to say yes. And on the first date, he got so mad talking about how many times he had asked her out and decided to stand up and ditch her at the restaurant. The waiter had to call her brother to come and pick her up.
Did he do that on purpose? Like, was he
maybe
like,
he was like, his ego was so hurt. He's like, I'm going to take her out and then I'm going to ditch her.
Show her how this feels.
You call me and I will come pick you up, girl.
Yeah, we'll come.
We'll
come have dinner with you.
Yeah,
how about that? Because that would be better.
Pay.
Yeah, and we'll pay.
And we'll pay for you. I like how we're getting so like.
This one was like less funny and more like, I'm really upset now. Yeah, no, I know. Not okay.
Well,
we deserve better, girls. I mean, awkward dates happen. We can't control that. Sometimes we are the causes, and I'm sure me more than most, but awkward dates
awkward?
I feel like sometimes I do. Kind of going back to the things I think I'm funny, and then I'm like, miss.
Well, that's both of us. That I think you're funny.
Well, thanks. I'll date you. I'll date you. I just don't get embarrassed very easily, and so sometimes I will just be okay to try doing funny stuff, but then I'm like, that just made everybody feel really uncomfortable. Yeah. But which makes me actually think it's even more funny. So, anyways, why did we go to me? But this date segment, I don't know.
Yeah.
Was it funny?
Hey, at least hopefully they can write them and think that they're funny as they're writing them.
Because they're remembering back.
Yeah. So
we hope.
Thanks for listening. Now we'll go into the episode. Mixers is a company made for women by women. Each of our products have been carefully and lovingly crafted to support you in all stages of your life, providing you with the optimal health you deserve. Each ingredient we handpick is 100% all natural, backed by science, and chosen specifically to better your life physically, mentally, and hormonally. Each product empowers your body to take charge of its monthly hormonal shift and flows, empowering you to live life to the fullest. Let Mixers take care of your needs from sunup to sundown, and you take care of the rest. Check us out at mixers.com, MIXHERS.
Valerie, I can't wait for this audience to get to know you and to get into this topic today. We're going to talk so much about our sleep, but even more beyond that, like how to optimize our sleep no matter what age or phase of our life that we're in. And you are the expert. I loved looking over your social media and listening to some of the other interviews that you've done. And you just are a wealth of knowledge. But will you just say hi to the ladies and tell us a little bit about you and why you're so passionate about helping women with their sleep?
Thanks so much, Cody. I'm so happy to be here. Yeah, I'm Dr. Valerie Cacho. I'm an integrative sleep physician and women's sleep expert. And why am I so passionate? Well, I've had my own sleep struggles throughout the years, being a sort of med student where I didn't really know about sleep. And I would stay up all night studying. And then I actually would fall asleep during my test, which is pretty awful looking back. And then, being a resident, you're sort of made to work. I'd say voluntold to work, hours upon end. And yeah, I was still in the time period where we would work over 30 hours. And now the rules have definitely changed. But, looking back, I think those times maybe just prepared me for motherhood. And now I have 2 young kids. And I think it's just sort of amazing how women can do so much with their own health. But yeah, I just really like sleep because I think it makes everything better, from going down from top down. You think better, your brain works better. It's better for your immune system. It's better for your heart. I'm more present with my kids when I'm more well rested. So there's just so many benefits. And a lot of women do struggle with sleep. Women have higher rates of things like anxiety and depression, which may be hormonal related, but it may also be just social factors. And I just feel like in medicine and in sleep medicine in general, there's a lot of gender bias in medicine for women. So I think women get dismissed a lot. And so I'm really here just to say, you can get better sleep. I can help you. There are pretty simple tips. You don't have to buy any fancy tech or be on medications lifelong if that's not your interest. And yeah, that's really what I'm here for. There's a lot of lifestyle things that you can do and a lot of mindset shifts that can help improve the quality of sleep that you have if you are struggling with that in your life.
That is what we're here for. And we love and appreciate all of those tips and tricks because yes, I think that it's no new news that sleep is so important and that it affects everything. And when we're not getting good quality sleep, then we feel it. You're right. As women, we're able to really do a lot, even with poor quality sleep. We're pretty awesome. We get stuff done, right? We know how to work through pain of, our periods, but we also know how to function on no to, little sleep. And so yeah, but what we love is understanding why we might be struggling with our sleep, but also to know what can we do about it? What are some action steps that we can do? And you talked about how, as women, this is something that's really common, that we're actually more susceptible to having insomnia and anxiety. Yeah. And you mentioned that anxiety could be caused by hormones for sure. But yeah, you also just said maybe that's something else. It could be other things as well. So what are some of the main drivers that you're noticing?
Yeah, well, I think I maybe like to scale it back and give just a mini sleep lesson. I call it the triad of sleep. Because when you take a look at sleep from a biological standpoint, you actually have 2 things within your brain and your body that control how well you sleep and also your wakefulness. The first is something called the homeostatic sleep drive. And this one's pretty easy to understand. Basically, the longer you're awake, the sleepier you get. So I have this water bottle typically next to me. And I'd say in the morning time, if you had a great night of sleep, it's empty. As the day goes on, you're building up this pressure. This pressure is called process S or adenosine. And that makes you feel sleepy. So if you drink caffeine. Guess what? Caffeine can block adenosine from attaching to your brain receptors. Mm-hmm. And for people who maybe aren't immune to that, it can make you feel more awake, right? When you when you're not sleepy. Everybody knows someone who can have an espresso and fall asleep right away. So knowing that, right, the longer you're awake, the sleepier you get. And so because of that, the typical recommendations are go to sleep around the same time and wake up around the same time. Because if you sleep in late on the weekends, that can affect your sleep pressure. Or if you take naps. Now, sometimes we're just so tired, we needed a little bit of a nap to get through the day. I'm actually a big proponent of naps, better than caffeine because I'm so sensitive to caffeine. So a small, short nap, about 15, 20 minutes, can help you feel better. Because for me, if I have too much caffeine, especially in the evening, then I'll be up until, like 2 a.m. or later.
Oh, I'm the same.
So that's one thing. So that's the homeostatic sleep drive. The longer you're awake, the sleepier you get. The second thing is your circadian rhythm, and that's based on light, darkness, and melatonin. And this is something that, I've seen everywhere in terms of getting off your screens at night. And it's because it affects your circadian rhythm. What happens when it's dark? Darkness is actually a signal for our brains to release melatonin. And melatonin, it's sort of sold as a supplement, but it's actually a hormone. And it's the natural hormone that's released in terms of when it's darkness. What does it do? I don't think of it as a sleeping pill, but it helps regulate our sleep stages. And so what happens as we sleep, going back to that homeostatic pressure, right? You're so tired, it builds up. And when you go to sleep, that pressure gets relieved. And so there's a nice graph that I like to teach my patients about. And you can see as that pressure starts to get relieved at night, the melatonin levels start to peak like early in the morning. And that can help keep us asleep. Melatonin is actually really phenomenal because it does more than sleep. Our sleep system affects more than just our sleep system. It has some anti-cancer properties. So women who've had breast cancer, some studies show taking melatonin can actually decrease their risk for a secondary event.
Exciting.
Yeah. It may do things for our immune system, right? It can maybe lower our blood pressure a little bit. And there's a lot of melatonin in our gut. And so I think we're learning more about the impacts melatonin has beyond our sleep system. Another thing to note is if someone has a hard time falling asleep at night, it may just be because your clock isn't ready, right? And so I have a lot of patients who come in with insomnia, but really they're night owls trying to live a day person's life. Okay. And the way I know this is that, on the weekend, they go to sleep at like 1 or 2. And then during the week, they're trying to go to bed at 9, but then they lay in bed for 2 to 3 hours, just waiting for sleep to come. Because, they got to wake up early, commute to go to work. But it's really a amount of your circadian clock being a little bit shifted. And so one way that we can actually treat that is just to get more sunlight in the morning. And it's sounds pretty simple, but it's like, when you understand the science, things make sense. So for our triad going back, we have our homeostatic sleep drive. The longer you're awake, the sleepier you get. Your circadian rhythm, you want to avoid light at night, get as much sunlight in the morning, and then just allow melatonin to come when it's dark. And then the third, I think, is what a lot of us struggle with is the arousal state. So if I brought you to my sleep lab and we put wires on your brain, they're called EEG, we're looking at how fast or how slow your brain waves are firing. And essentially with sleep, it's your brain waves start to slow down. And so if you're a person who is worrying a lot, has a lot of anxiety, or just maybe has a to-do list that just never wants to stop.
Right.
Which is probably
so many, all of us, right?
Yes. Yeah. I have a lot to think about.
I bet.
I have like to-do lists for my to-do list.
Yeah.
But it's that arousal state. And that can keep us from either falling asleep, but also staying asleep. So then a lot of what I do is, teach people how to relax, how to slow down their brain waves through different mind-body practices. So that's a sleep triad. So it's a combination of biological factors and then basically what you're thinking and your environment.
So helpful. It's so helpful. I mean, we love teaching about this because it helps us feel empowered. It helps us to feel like there's a lot that we can control. I know that it can be frustrating. When I was younger in my 30s, I struggled with insomnia really bad. Like I would be, most of it was my lifestyle. I was running these, we owned gyms and I was a personal trainer. And so I'd have to get up early. We'd open those gyms by 5 a.m. and then it was just like go time. So in that morning time, I wasn't getting the natural sunlight. And then I was exerting myself physically all day. And then if I had like a little moment in the afternoon, I would be either thinking I need some caffeine or I'm going to crash, or I would try to get in this little nap. But I learned that sleep pressure that you just described, and that actually made the biggest difference for me because even though, yes, I'm all for a good power nap too. But I think if you are struggling with insomnia, and you tell us if I'm wrong with this, but this is what worked for me, was that if I could just kind of do other things to help calm myself down without taking that power nap, and then just try to go to sleep a little bit earlier that night, I was able to get my body back into that better circadian rhythm.
Yeah,
right?
No, that's perfect, Cody. I'm so glad that you found the answer. Because
so happy too.
you're waking up early, you're going all day. I'm sure your body's exhausted, but at the same time, if you're working with people day in, day out, if you don't have that wind down time for yourself, just a perfect example, when you're doing personal training, did you have your client just start doing the heaviest weights, or was there a warm up?
Always a warm up. Always a warm up. Always. And a cool down.
And a cool down. There you go. Yep. So just like sleep, I think we've sort of been in this cultural process. I can see why, because I sort of do this to my kids who are, 3 and 5, go to your room, put your head down and just go to sleep. But there's got to be the wind down, right? You don't just lift the heaviest weights. You got to warm your brain up for sleep, which is almost like the opposite, because it's like the wind down for sleep. We definitely do read our books, but sometimes as adults, we get away from that. We're going. We've got XYZ to do. We do dinner, we putz around the house, and then we put our head on our pillow and we wonder why we're not asleep. So exactly. Doing the right thing, finding out ways to calm yourself down, getting your brain ready to go to sleep. So then when it's time, it's easier to fall into sleep.
Yeah. And I know sometimes it sounds like so much easier said than done, because I get it. Especially when I was at your stage, when I had young kids, it was like that nighttime, after they had gone to bed, that was like my time, or me and my husband's time, or, and so this would be oftentimes that we would be tempted to look at our screens, watch a movie together, or look at our screens, catch up on social media, whatever. No, and it is so disruptive. And so if we can kind of fit in and first of all, understand like everything you just talked about, understanding how much light affects us, how much what we're doing throughout the day is going to affect our ability to have really good quality sleep through the night. But let's give the audience some tools to I know that like what you've been describing is what I would feel. I would be exhausted physically, but then when it was time to actually go to sleep, my brain was still firing like crazy. So that wired but tired experience. So I've kind of figured out some little rituals that help me, but I would love to know what are some of your favorite rituals that you do for yourself and what you recommend to your patients.
Oh, this is such a good question. And I would say probably it comes back to mindset, knowing how important sleep is, how much better I feel when I get enough sleep. And I think that's number one, defining how much enough sleep is for you. I think of sleep like fuel, right? Am I fueling my body? Am I recharging myself enough for what I'm going to do the next day? And I always say, no one's a perfect sleeper 100% of the time. If there is a good show that I want to watch, I will watch it, but probably not during the work week where I know I have to be, with it. My brain needs to be active, talking to patients about their sleep. I can't be yawning while someone's talking to me about their sleep. So I would say prioritize sleep. Figure out how much sleep you need. I'm a little bit of a longer sleeper. I feel like between 8.5, I feel good. Most adults need between 7 to 9. Some people do amazing with 6.5. I don't recommend less than 6 hours, because less than 6 hours has been shown to increase things like high blood pressure, regular heartbeat. So it's not the best for our heart health and also probably our brain health. But getting enough sleep. And for the folks who have busy minds, I have a lot of different tools, but I think the best one is understanding the science of our autonomic nervous system, right? That heart rate variability, that stress response, and that relaxation response. And knowing that stress is good, right? If you were walking down the street and a bus was coming at you, you want to have that cortisol kick in to tell you, all right, got to jump out of the way, run out of the way, get safe. The issue is that sometimes we're just on too much. And so how do we turn down that stress? The quickest way is through your breathing. And, it sounds so simple and maybe overplayed, but slowing down your breath slows down your mind and it stimulates that relaxation response. The technique I like to teach is from Dr. Andrew Weil, just like the father of integrative medicine.
Love him.
I practiced through him. Yeah, I did my fellowship through him. And he recommends the 4, 7, 8 breathing technique. Yeah. And all that is you inhale for 4, hold your breath for 7, and then slowly exhale for 8. And so when I myself have a busy mind and I'm thinking about, I need to email her back and set up this meeting and make sure the kids' doctor's appointments get booked. And I don't want to grab my phone because I don't want to have that light stimulation. I'm like, pause, it'll get done. And I just and sometimes I don't even make it to the 3rd or 4th round because I'm already starting to yawn. So that's one of my favorite techniques at night. Another one is I'm a big fan of sort of guided imagery, guided meditations. Yeah. And so something that I like to do is I like to think of a place that was super relaxing, whether it be a really relaxing vacation that I went on, or maybe thinking to the past when I was a younger child and I was just sleeping in my own bedroom and my parents live in Northern California, sort of in the countryside where it's super, super dark. There's not a lot of light pollution and you can actually just hear the frogs and crickets, so there's natural white noise. So if I just imagine myself either being in my childhood bedroom or being on a nice vacation, and then I go through the senses. So this is a good exercise. You start with the 5 senses. So it's, name 5 things that you can see. So if I'm on a vacation, I'm in a nice resort, I'm like, okay, what are 5 things that I'm seeing? I typically like to go to beach places. So, seeing the blue sky, seeing the sand, seeing the waves, right? And I go through that list. And then next is what are 4 things that I can feel? And then 3 things that I can hear, 2 things that I can smell, and then 1 thing that I can taste. Because if you're really focused on the senses, it gives your brain something to anchor itself in.
That's great.
I can almost guarantee you it's hard to have that busy mind while you're like, okay, what am I actually hearing right now? Let me hear. Let me stop and pause. Yeah. And it brings an element of mindfulness into it. I would say those are probably my 2 favorite things to do in the middle of the night. But what I always encourage people to do if they have busy minds is just hit that pause button. And what does that look like? For me, I'm typically behind my desk all the time. So getting up and going for a walk, but also just journaling. And I know a lot of people recommend journaling now and you call it thought download, paper thinking. But if you can get the things off of your mind into paper, and if you want to just throw it away, you can do that or flush it down the toilet.
Never need to read it again.
Yeah, it's like clearing your cache. A good example, I'm like, well, what do you do with all the mail that you just don't use anymore? Do you just leave it on your dining room table and just let it accumulate? Or do you actually just throw in the trash can? So you sort of think about that with your thoughts. And it sounds easy to do, but honestly, just like exercise, the more you do it, the easier you get. And it gets. And if you think of your brain like a muscle, you really want to strengthen that relaxation response as much as possible because, life doesn't always get easier. Sometimes I think life gets harder, but what gets easier is your reaction to things, the way that you handle stress and all those tools that you built up throughout the years that, right? Even though when you get older, you're going through some hormonal changes, or maybe you get some physical limitations or, develop some health problems. But if you develop the tools in your 20s and 30s and 40s, you're a little bit more resilient. And so maybe the blow isn't as hard.
Yeah. The toolkit, if you can have a good toolkit, you can usually handle anything. Because you're right. We're never going to always have like perfect night sleep every single night. That's fine. But getting these tools and some of the things that you mentioned are absolutely the same tools that I use. I think that shows that they're tried and true. And it does take practice. It's not going to work always perfectly the first time that you try to do a visual meditation. It might be a struggle for you to even kind of remember what something smells like or feels like, but the more you practice, the better. And I love how you brought in the whole kind of just tying in and like connecting to your parasympathetic nervous system, and getting yourself into the moment, into the now. I think that what keeps us up and that keeps our minds racing is we're always thinking about what happened before and then what's supposed to be happening next. And we just need to get into that moment. And that's one of the best things that we can possibly do.
But more.
Yeah, I know. We've probably all been there.
Yeah.
We're in sync, girl. We got this. These are some good tips and usable and doable for anybody to, start implementing into their life. But you talked about how, yes, as we get older, sometimes life can feel like it gets a little bit harder. And there's some things that play into that. And it can be because of hormonal shifts that are happening. I know that for me, I work a lot with women who are either transitioning into or have already gone beyond menopause. And this is like one of the main symptoms that they complain about is that now all of a sudden they are struggling with their sleep and they're waking up with night sweats, hot flashes, things like that. So, or having to go to the bathroom. That sounds like but it's such a thing that happens, like having to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and then getting up. And now you're like, great, now I'm awake.
Now you're too awake,
party.
Right? That sleep pressure has been relieved a little bit. And you're like, how did I go back to sleep?
Yes. So tell us a little bit about why that is and why is aging a part of this and what can we do about it?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. And, as I mentioned, I'm going to always bring it back to the science. So from a data standpoint, 40 to 60% of women who go through perimenopause and menopause do have difficulty sleeping. The two main sex hormones that start to slowly go away, sometimes they fluctuate, but as time goes on, our bodies just basically say, you don't need to have babies anymore. And so those hormones start to go away. But the abrupt change in the hormones, right? When the estrogen drops, when the progesterone drops, that's when I want to say it wreaks havoc on our body. Most people do have symptoms, up to 80% of people. And you mentioned, right? The night sweats, the sleep disturbances, urinating at night, pain on intercourse, dry skin, irritability, right? Are some of those things. Why? Because of the hormone shifts. And progesterone specifically, it's progestation, but it actually is a chill hormone. Right?
It is. You're right.
It helps support our sleep. And so if you are a candidate and you are interested, I always say, talk to your doctor about getting on a little bit of hormone. You don't have to be on it forever and ever, but it can support your symptoms. Yeah. And if you don't want to be on it, there's a lot of other things that are available. There's herbal things that certainly can help. Things that are what we call phytoestrogens, so plant-based estrogens, things like red clover, wild yam, right? If you think of like the breakdown products for it, if they can help support those hormones, are really beneficial. So definitely for hot flashes, I would say if those disrupt your sleep, we don't know how long they're going to last, typically 4 to 7 years. I've seen people even 10 years. So you don't have to suffer, but it's also interesting if you don't want to take something for it. Things like cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia have been shown to be really helpful. Things like yoga, like meditation, mindfulness therapies can help, and even clinical hypnotherapy. And so it's really interesting how the body and our mind can work. And even if there are physical changes in our hormone levels, there's a lot of treatment options to help you feel better. Yeah,
absolutely. And I love that you named so many of them. But that's the thing is I want our audience to feel empowered with what options there are available. Valerie, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to try our products. We have Her Time, which helps to produce or helps to support optimal progesterone production. Okay. So it's amazing to help through this perimenopausal stage. We also have a product called Her Thrive that is full of the most powerful phytoestrogens that definitely help
you go.
Support this because there's a lot of power in nutrients, right? Definitely. But I also love that you mentioned that you want to talk with your healthcare provider. You want to work with them and understand that, yes, there are some, like bioidentical hormone replacement therapy might be something that you might want to look into. Not something that you want to be reliant on forever, but it is something that can be so beneficial for you, especially as you're transitioning. But remember that all of these symptoms, like all the things you named, the insomnia, the hot flashes, the vaginal dryness, all of these things are just our symptoms that are telling our body that we're lacking something. We're needing a little extra TLC. So there's a lot you can do through some of these modalities that Valerie shared with us and through some nutritional therapy. And so honestly, my whole thing is like, as women, yes. Is it common that we might suffer a little bit through some of these stages of life and these transitions that we go through? Yes, it's common, but it doesn't have to be the norm. It is
exactly.
There's so much that we can definitely do.
And I love how you emphasize that because I've had patients who come to me and say, well, all my friends are tired. So, right, like just because it's common doesn't necessarily mean it's normal, but also there's so many things that you can do about it. And so just giving people options and helping sort of steer them in the right direction because I think they know what their body needs. They just need a little bit of support on their health journey.
Yeah. And kind of permission to know that if it feels like it's uncomfortable and it doesn't feel right or something's changed, it's okay to look into it and to question and to try to make some improvements. Because I do get that so many times, we're just told like, well, you're a woman, first of all. This is just what it's like to be a woman. And then secondly, it's
deal
like,
with it.
deal with it. And the other thing is that you're getting older. So no wonder you're feeling tired. No wonder you're, having these symptoms. But no, there's so many women, if you think about it. And I love nowadays, I feel like maybe it's through social media. I don't know what it is, why the reason is, but we're seeing more and more women who are thriving.
Yes,
and
so
we get
true.
to see that. And it's like, it's a great, very hopeful, positive outlook on aging. And I think that's something I get excited about having conversations about here, because that's what I think too. Mindset is going to play a huge role in this as well. If you think to yourself, oh, well, as soon as I hit this age, everything goes downhill. It will. It will go downhill. Mindset's huge.
And, speaking to that, Martha Stewart's on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Like when I was a kid, there never someone like her. It was always just the skinny models. And it was just, I think it's phenomenal that, age is celebrated.
It needs to be.
Yeah.
We're all doing it. All of us are aging. Let's embrace it. Let's just see the beauty of it. And be grateful that we get to, age.
I love that.
So,
Definitely.
And I love, you spoke to my heart too, when you're mentioning some of these little therapies that you can implement into your life. And I'm curious to know, like, do you recommend like yoga and like massage and, all of the things? I don't know what are all of the things that you recommend. Do you recommend this to all of your patients if they're struggling with insomnia?
Yeah.
What do you like best? Yeah.
I would say it depends on the person.
Okay.
Most patients who do see me for insomnia, I would say are more on the severe end where maybe they're already on phytoestrogens or they've tried HRT and had different side effects. And then they've even tried sleeping pills and still cannot sleep. So typically what I do is I like to hone in on what they're most worried about. I mean, as you know, I could like list off 20 things that they could try, but then also that can be really overwhelming. And then, going back to, your previous life of being a personal trainer, right? There's so many different exercises, but what's the best exercise? The one that they do. Right. So I definitely provide an individualized approach to care, focusing on, where the person is. Sometimes people are too exhausted to even stand outside and get some sunshine. And I say, okay, can you sit by a window, right? Can you just move your desk instead of facing the wall? Can you face your window? And can we start there? I like to really meet someone where they're at. Yes, some people love acupuncture. Yes, some people love to come see me for clinical hypnotherapy. Some of my patients are really self-directed learners, and I just refer them to online programs where they can, learn about sleep sort of self-paced. Yeah, so there's just really a wide variety. I would say what has worked best is mindset shifts. A lot of times people come to me is because they think that their sleep is broken or they're broken in some way. And honestly, I'm like their biggest cheerleader, right?
Yeah,
I've seen this over and over again. You can do it. I believe in you. If you don't believe in yourself, then, take my belief and really just working on their confidence where, yes, things are not ideal, but we can get there. And it starts by having those slight shifts, right? Those slight shifts. So like you're turning the ship into the direction. And I would say that works best. And I guess the psychological term is cognitive therapy. So, right, the mindset shifts, it's the cognitive therapy, working on the negative thoughts they have about sleep, the limiting thoughts, really becoming aware of what they are and then accepting it and then shifting it to pro-sleep thoughts, even pro-sleep mantras. And what I love to do is have an individual imagine the best night of sleep of their life, right? What would the ideal situation? And sort of like what we do in healthcare for smoking cessation, when's your stop date, right? Because if you can come up with a quit date, right? You have a goal in mind. So same thing for sleep. I'm like, okay, what does an amazing night of sleep look for you?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And now that we have that, what date is it? And we actually pick a date. Sometimes it's a month away. Sometimes it's 6 months away. Sometimes it's a year away. We actually put it in, It's, what is it today? It's May. 2024, right? It's 9 o'clock. I have my alarm on and I'm going to get ready for bed. I turned off my phone. I put it in airplane mode so no one's going to bother me. I'm doing my bedtime ritual, whether it be reading a small book, listening to soft music, taking a supplement or drinking a tea. And I'm having my wind down phase. And so I'm already asleep by 10. I'm able to sleep through the night and I wake up refreshed and I'm ready to start my day. So I have them paint the picture of what life could be like. It's almost like it's turning that chip, right? It's helping them see what's possible rather than a lot of people just focus on, I can't sleep, I don't know why, and nothing works. And so if you have that mindset that nothing works, well, then you're right?
Yeah.
If that's what you believe, then that's good. What's your truth?
Our bodies, our brains love that routine, right? Yeah. And they really want to solidify those neural pathways that like, this is what is supposed to happen. And But it is so cool. There's so many great things that are coming out and that we're learning about how we are, we have neuroplasticity, that we can actually change our brains and we can change our habits. Yes. Habits are there. They're there to help keep us safe and to, get us from point A to point B. But sometimes we're like that direction from point A to point B has been terrible. It is not working for me. You can learn a new route. And so that's what I'm hearing you say is that, if you can picture and imagine that it's possible to have a really beautiful sleep every single night, you have to get your brain imagining that that's even possible. And then your brain will always go and look for evidence to prove that what you are believing is true. And so, that's really powerful. And I think that's so, so key. I think we need to realize that we have a lot of power. Quick little personal example of this is that I did when I had like consecutive insomnia. I seriously, for a decade, I didn't sleep more than like 2 or 3 hours. It was terrible. And it would be like, I would try to do all the things, to try to get some sleep, but it would almost be like this anxiety would build. Yeah. It didn't matter if I even took a sleeping pill or something. I would still feel anxious and not be able to sleep. And so I kept kind of like reiterating in my brain that I don't sleep. I'm not good at sleep. And I finally had it was a sleep therapist that shared this thought with me. She had said, listen, you have to be okay that you're not going to get a good night's sleep, and just tell yourself that this might not be a night that for you that you're sleeping, you might be up doing all kinds of things. But if you can just tell yourself, but I'll be fine. I've survived days like this after a bad night's sleep before. And tonight I'm going to sleep really great. And you start telling yourself that so that you relieve some of that pressure and that stress that has to be perfect.
Exactly.
I feel like that helped me a lot to just kind of...
I love that. Reset some expectations. And it's so interesting because I'm sure you stayed up really late going to a party or a wedding, and the next day probably wasn't so awful. But if it's just a regular old, work day, a poor night of sleep can really derail us. So
it really can.
It's just so interesting.
Yeah. And it has a huge effect on so many systems, like you're talking about, hormone system, obviously. But it's a time when we're sleeping. It's so key for us, for our overall health. It's time that our body is resting and digesting and detoxifying. And so there's a lot of symptoms that we suffer with, like we've mentioned, even some that are just associated with different like stages of our life. But honestly, a good night's sleep would be some of the best medicine that we could possibly give ourselves if it comes to like whether or not our sex hormones are balanced, or our stress hormones are balanced. Yeah. So sleep is important, girls. We gotta make it a big priority, right? It's more than just our beauty sleep. It's just, we need it for our overall health and wellness.
Definitely. Yeah, I love it, Cody. You've hit all the points that I normally talk about, right? The whole detoxification. I can speak to that, right? So sometimes people ask, especially, as we get older, my brain isn't working as well. I've got this brain fog. Am I going to develop dementia? I think a lot of people are worried about
We're terrified of that, right? Yeah.
And the thing about it is when your brain is going and going, and if you aren't able to go into the deeper stages of sleep, right? Stage 3 sleep is considered deep sleep. Our trash collectors don't come out. And what do I mean by that? There's actually a system, we call it the lymphatic system. And it's when, the time of the day or night, depending on when we're sleeping, is when the gunk, the toxins from our brain actually get washed away. So sometimes people call it the shampoo. So the shampoo comes out. So if we're shortchanging ourselves on sleep because we want to stay up and watch the latest drama, or whatever we're doing, or if we're, working on to-do list, or, we're just scrolling social media, it's almost like actually getting better sleep is better for your brain health and you're going to function better. So sleep and performance just go hand in hand. So
absolutely.
Yeah, another plug for getting more sleep.
That was a good plug. I think that's really visual and motivating. And you recognize like, oh, this is what's happening when I'm sleeping. Yeah. And not only does it help us to feel better the next day, but like you're saying, it's going to benefit us down the road many years. There's going to be things that maybe we can help prevent some diseases that maybe we don't want to have to deal with later in our life. And sleep, something we all do, but if we can just learn to do it better, then
exactly, just learn to do it better. And the thing about it's free and it's accessible to us. So I love how you're changing the narrative and around it. I think we've done enough with like hustle culture. I'll sleep when I'm dead, or I'll sleep when I'm retired.
We're over that.
We're over that. That's been canceled.
That's yesterday. Like right now, we are all about just being in the now, right? And doing what we can now and being our own best health advocates and setting ourselves up for success in other ways, with how we feel and how we function. That's wealth right there. Health is wealth. And so
true. So true. Yeah. The preventive part. I love it, Cody. Thank you.
Such a fun conversation, Valerie. You're amazing. I don't want to cut off if there's anything else that you want to share, but I do know that you're a busy doctor that's helping so many people every day to get their very best sleep. Anything else you want to share with the audience?
No, I just want to plug. I have an online company called Sleephoria, and it was founded on a belief that a well-rested woman has the energy, clarity, and drive to change the world. And so I'm so glad and thankful for opportunities like this just to really talk about the importance of sleep. I have free articles on my website, sleephoria.com, and you can also check out my YouTube channel where I just talk about little tidbits and how women can get better sleep.
I love it. And we will for sure be linking every way that you just mentioned, ways that you girls can connect with Valerie. We'll have all these connections in our show notes. You can follow her on her social media. You can watch her on YouTube, take her courses, you just are a wealth of knowledge. And I appreciate the whole integrative approach that you take to this. You stand apart from other doctors that maybe are sleep doctors. You've got the whole approach, which is just awesome. Something we could definitely get behind. So thank you for spending some time with us and having this conversation. I think we're all going to start imagining our very best, most beautiful sleep. And we're going to set ourselves up for that tonight. We're going to get the light in our eyes in the morning. We're going to make sure we turn off our blue light at night. And we're going to get our mindset right. So thank you for encouraging us and motivating us today.
My pleasure, Cody. I got goosebumps while you said that. Right?
Oh, you're so cute.
Good. Thank you for your time.
It's so fun.
All right. Well, everybody. Bye-bye.
That's right. Thank you so much for tuning in, ladies. Please share this episode if you found that it was helpful with the girls in your life, because sharing is caring. And this is why we're here. This is why we have amazing guests on here like Valerie, because they want to share their expertise on how we can actually feel our best so that we can show up in the world as our very best selves and make the difference that we're meant to do. So please, if you aren't already, subscribe to this channel. If you're on YouTube or if you're on your favorite podcast platform, make sure you're liking and subscribing and sharing. That's the best way that helps our podcast and our community to be able to grow. And so we can continue to have these kinds of conversations. So until next Tuesday, when we come back with a new episode, we hope you have a very happy and healthy week.